Greetings from LA, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much like to continue on with our journeys, our discussions, our discoveries, and our explorations with respect to the recent releases made by the Criterion Collection during this year of 2024. And that brings us to a title which has been designated by Criterion at spy number 1241. And this is a work which is described as being from the year 1973. And the name of the filmmaker is Peter Bogdanovich. And the name of the work is Paper Moon. This is the work, the utterly and eternally charming film, which is from the Peter Bogdanovich. This is directed and produced by Peter Bogdanovich, also working closely with a longtime collaborator and Polly Platt, who here, among other things, is the production designer. And we have the script by Alvin Sargent, based upon the novel by Joe David Brown, and we have the photography, the great photography, Laszlo Kovacs, and editor Verna Fields. This is a great film from the 70s, one of my favorite Bogdanovich films, with a brilliant cast, included in which are, for example, Madeline Kahn and John Hillerman and Randy Quaid, and starring Ryan O'Neal and Tatum O'Neal as Moses or Mose and Addie, respectively, in this work, which, again, is one of my favorite Bogdanovich films ever. After all, it's only a paper moon. Yes, Paper Moon. The work is Paper Moon from 1973. This is another Bogdanovich film working with Polly Platt that is entering into the Criterion Collection physical media catalog. And we are, I for one, am so over the moon by this. It is charming as always, and just upon rewatching it for the whatever time I've lost count how many times I've seen this film, but for however many times I've seen this film, and now thanks to the Criterion Collection, I'll add a couple more or a few more times to that count, because I've seen it now a number of times through this Criterion release. But needless to say, I am just ever reminded of how beautiful this film is, how funny this is, how clever, witty. It's very gritty and down to earth, and also very winking at the audience at a lot of places, and also very heartfelt, very emotional, and very warm, about an easy/uneasy relationship between our two main characters. And this is, as I mentioned, Ryan O'Neal's Mose and Tatum O'Neal's Addie, who form a really dynamite, devilish, and quite endearing duo indeed. So Paper Moon, the great Paper Moon, is now in the Criterion Collection physical media catalog. Wonderful to see this here. And we'll talk a little bit more about the contours of the 4K UHD and Blu-ray presentation. I should say that this is the 4K UHD plus Blu-ray combo edition in this wonderful packaging, which I will talk a little bit more about later in this video. But suffice to say, I'm overall quite impressed with this. So we'll talk in more detail about that later, but in this video. But before we get to anything else, I should also say, before I forget, and that I remember I first saw this film Paper Moon at school. I would have been maybe, I forget exactly when, maybe it was, gosh, maybe it was like fifth grade, sixth grade, something like that, seventh grade, something like that. So still in maybe my middle school years, if you're counting. And um, it was one of those where uh, the teacher, I think it was a substitute teacher in one of my classes, instead of teaching the class based on a curriculum, what the person did instead was, the substitute teacher did instead was they played Paper Moon on a VHS tape in on this this kind of tray that you would roll in with a huge TV on top of it and a VCR deck in the middle. And the teacher, I remember, she put in the videotape of Paper Moon, and we sat there. The lights were off, and we were watching Paper Moon. We had the substitute teacher, I think, for a number of days, so we had to stop the film part way when the class time was up, and so it was like that. But then we came back the next day or whatever, we'd pick up where we left off, and so ultimately we ended up watching Paper Moon in this kind of incremental fashion. And so it was I don't remember the teacher did that a lot. I remember this, we had the same teacher, I think it was the same teacher who did that on a separate occasion for another film called Rain Man, by the way. But anyway, Paper Moon. So this person obviously, I think, enjoyed watching movies a lot, and I think wanted to impart that on the students, such as myself, even in the substitute teacher capacity. So that was my first time to watch Paper Moon, and I hadn't heard about it before. And I remember the substitute teacher saying that, oh, it's a black and white film. So, but don't worry. I remember she said that, but don't worry. And I was so curious by this, but why would one worry? But I thought, yes, oh, okay, I see. But when after you begin watching Paper Moon, I mean, it becomes, I mean, the black and white photography becomes doesn't become at all an impairment or an impediment or hindrance. On the contrary, I mean, if anything, it becomes this beautiful gateway into the world of the pair and sort of Depression era Dust Bowl America. Setting it's shot in Kansas, and so it's meant to be very evocative of a time and era, but also I think meant to be timeless as well. So the black and white photography, and all with the red filter, as we'll talk about with regard to Laszlo Kovacs and Peter Bogdanovich and Orson Welles a little bit later. But the red filter and then application of the black and white photography. But the what was I saying? I'm losing track. I'm so sorry. I'm already excited about talking about Paper Moon, so please forgive me, my dear friends. But yes, so this was what the substitute teacher had said, and also talking a little bit about saying, oh, did you know that Ryan O'Neal and Tatum O'Neal are really father and daughter in real life? And I was that really. To my however old I was, maybe 11, 12, 13, maybe around that age, I was thinking, my goodness, that was that really took me by surprise. I'm not sure why I was so surprised by to the degree that I was, but yes, I was. And then I watched the film, and she said this before the film started, and the substitute teacher did. And then I just sat in the dark in that classroom and just watching the film. I don't know how any of the other students reacted to it, but I thought it was really great. And I was just that comment about the how Ryan O'Neal and Tatum O'Neal were real life father and daughter. And so I was thinking, how are they how are they playing the scene like this if they're really father and daughter? What gives? What's going on? So I was thinking of it like that, and so it was this constant maybe inner monologue or inner dialogue that I was having with the film, I think, in a manner of speaking, which was really fun. And I think thinking back on it, I think that was a kind of formative experience in my own cinema journey, to actually think about it, and maybe also in a maybe in a quiet sort of way. I was already being engaged with the film in a manner of speaking. So that was really wonderful. And there were a lot of things about the film that flew right over my head, again, watching it at 11, 12 or so. But many things flew right over my head. I remember being so shocked at a lot of the things that, for instance, Addie does. I don't know, things like, I mean, there's scenes also involving Addie and cigarettes and stuff. So I was really shocked by this, and just also other situations too, involving certain dialogue scenes in particular, and these many adventures and misadventures that the pair get themselves involved in, and they have to try to dig themselves out in some way possible. And so I remember also being so captivated by a scene involving money and a hat and Addie, the Tatum O'Neal character. It was a very fascinating shot to me for whatever reason. Well, actually, I know the reason why. It's a really great setup of a shot, but um, in any event, yes, so these little sprinklings of details, maybe many of which would have flown right over my head in terms of the overall context and meaning, but these sprinklings of details and the feelings that I had, and as I say, this inner dialogue that I think I was already engaging with, thanks in no small part to I think the wonderful encouragement of the substitute teacher that I had. Also, of course, primarily in allowing us to watch the film Paper Moon during classroom hours. So I was, I think, as I say, it was a very formative experience. So I was very happy with that. And then we go to the film Paper Moon, and when it became available, on VHS tape to rent, I'd rent it occasionally after that experience and just relive the film again. And then when it became available on home media releases over the years prior to the Criterion release, I'd have that and rewatch it again fairly occasionally. And then now we have the Criterion release here in 2024, and it is a really great job here, purported to be based on a new restoration, right? New 4K restoration. So we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. But I should say also another thing too, which is as I grew older, I first saw the film when I was, pre-teenage years or something. So very, very young, many years ago. So maybe I looked at the film from the viewpoint of the child, from maybe I associated or sympathized more with Addie's perspective, because I saw myself somewhat closer in age to her than, say, to any of the other characters in the film Paper Moon. But then as I grew older, and then I too maybe settled down, I got married, settled down, and then I began a family, and I have my own daughter as well, who right now is a little bit older than Addie is during the film, but I think Addie in the film is around 8 or 9 years old, but in the film anyway. But it was watching the film with that perspective, and now from the perspective of a father who has a daughter as well. I mean, it really drives home a lot of emotional beats for me, and so I find it a really enriching watch indeed. And so now maybe that might be a good way to pivot a bit and turn to the film itself. And so, again, I'll try to be as vague as possible for the benefit of those who've not yet seen this brilliant and beautiful film, Paper Moon. But it essentially is a film set in circa 1930s Depression era, Dust Bowl, a part of America, the United States, and we understand that quite immediately the characters of Addie and Mose meet under circumstances involving the death of Addie's mother and the funeral, and what will happen to this young girl who is, as I say, is around 8 years old. And Mose enters into the picture, and there is some ambiguity, shall we say, about the possibility of who Addie's father is, and because we're not quite sure at the start of the film, but maybe there might be some connection between Mose and Addie. We're not sure, but in any event, through a certain set of circumstances, excuse me, uh, this pair, Mose and Addie, do indeed form, and they are on the road. Now, this is a very interesting conceit, because Mose himself is a kind of swindler. He is a swindler con man or con artist. And when Addie is with Mose, she catches on immediately as to what the trick is for him at the moment anyway, which is uh, selling Bibles to uh, uh, recently widowed persons that he is able to identify in sort of the newspaper columns about births and deaths, and so by reading that, he's able to find women who are recently widowed, and thus put on the trick that their husbands, prior to their deaths, had ordered really expensive Bibles in the names of their wives, and so he's here to collect on the payment, which of course is a complete fabrication, a complete act. But already then Addie catches on that this guy that uh, she ends up being with as she's trying to get to her new, say, family location in another part of the country, is tagging along with this guy and Mose, and she realizes that yeah, he's a con artist, but she also is able to pick up the game very, very, very quickly, as we see, and she is also very quick in very tight situations, and she also too goes along with the game, with the trick. And so we see the two of them getting to these very interesting adventures and misadventures involving trying to maybe skim a little bit off the top here, as they say, or maybe get pull a con there, and maybe, depending on the circumstances, try to get a little bit more money here. And in fact, what happens early on is Addie and Mose become a really strong duo. Mose is, of course, putting on the Bible salesman bit, but with Addie there, she's able to really take advantage of the situation, observing what the circumstances are, and based on her judgment, which is very, very astute and very clever, we find. She's able to judge and ascertain essentially how much they're able to push the con. Depending on the circumstances, maybe they should withdraw a bit. And she is a very careful reader of sort of the human condition in that way. And she's very, very wise beyond her years, in a manner of speaking. But then also maybe for other people, she sees in somewhat affluent situations, maybe they can not withdraw, but maybe push it a bit and maybe ask for a little bit more. So she's becoming a really great partner along the way to Mose. And in fact, there's a conceit about how Addie will not leave Mose until she gets the money that she thinks is owed to her by Mose, and so that forms a kind of uneasy alliance that quickly becomes a really strong one. In order to further the various schemes and cons and tricks along the way, and there's so many. There's one involving cash at a cash register, and a $5 bill and a $20 bill, and there I think Tatum O'Neal really shows her acting prowess really, really brilliantly, and the point is kind of sneaky, and it's kind of it's a bit, but it's also very charming and witty, and at the end of the day, you're always going along with our sort of anti-heroes, or heroes, as it were. So it shows a real lightness of touch, which I think is really quite remarkable in the Tatum O'Neal performance. It's really very beautiful, and also, while they become very close, but also we understand that Mose is a very maybe unpredictable person. He is somewhat unstable. He is not really, maybe he's quite directionless, and so we're not quite sure what the next thing is. Maybe he doesn't know either. Sort of going from place to place to place, just essentially trying to live off of how much he's able to scam as possible. But along the way, not only does Mose meet Addie, but there are also other people that they meet. For instance, the Madeline Kahn character, which in turn creates Madeline Kahn in this film is Madeline Kahn. I mean, she's one of the great legends, and she also adds this the Madeline Kahn touch of brilliant comedy and moments of physical humor and very clever bits of turns of phrase and dialogue, and um, quite spicy, and adding a bit of that of this type of how should I put it? Well, there are some very there's some maybe spicy entanglements, shall we say, that are involved with the introduction of her character, Trixie. Trixie Delight. And also, there's another little subplot or misadventure involving John Hillerman, the great John Hillerman, and the roles that he inhabits. So, and also we get into aspects of bootlegging and corrupt law officials and running from the law and evading capture, trying to escape, also maybe getting money, losing money, and all the while through these misadventures, we realize that Mose and Addie, and again, it's unclear in terms of what their relationship is, if any. I mean, it probably is nothing, but again, based upon the casting of Ryan O'Neal and Tatum O'Neal as a real life father and daughter in these roles, we also begin to inhabit that sensibility, that possibility of maybe there is some kind of stronger or closer connection between these two characters, which have hitherto been essentially strangers to each other up until the start of the film. Perhaps there's something closer in terms of the relationship between Mose and Addie than meets the eye. And so that becomes part of the charm of this film, Paper Moon, because as we get to know these people more and more, and as they too get to know each other more and more, we realize that in their own ways, they begin to care for each other. And so we see that also expressed in these many misadventures that are at the same time very funny, very outlandish, almost these. There's some really great slapstick humor points that borrow from a number of these sort of genre or subgenre of a type of say early 20th century, 20s 30s cinema entertainment. There's a sense of like Keystone Cops element about it. There's also some silent humor aspects about. There's also some brilliant photography at the same time. So there are these homages to, say, 20s and 30s cinema, all the way down to even the marquees on some of the movie theaters in the background in the early part of the film. It's great. I mean, it's references, I think, to works like John Ford, and we know Peter Bogdanovich and Polly Platt and others are really fond of great filmmakers from the past, like Ford and Wells and Hitchcock, etc. But what was I saying? But also at the same time, it's a really great film from this age in the 1970s, early 1970s. My goodness, what a time in terms of cinema. And you have so many classics, and Paper Moon is up there in terms of the great American classics from the 1970s, and it shows not just in the performances and also the sort of richness in character and the tapestry of 1930s Americana via a Kansas shot in the 1970s, but also shot by the great Laszlo Kovacs with the everything in focus. Things in the background are in focus, things in the foreground are in focus. I mean, there's a very famous scene early on at a train depot where Mose is essentially trying to get rid of Addie. They've left the funeral, but now he wants to send Addie home and then just get on with his life. That's the deal. But as he's trying to maneuver his way with the ticket, we see Addie behind his shoulder, looking very despondent and sullen. And then behind the shoulder of the train depot attendant, there's a window, and beyond the window in the great distance, there's like some kids playing in the distance. And so everything's in focus, while the train attendant and also Mose are also in the foreground focus. Things in the background are also in focus. So everything is in focus in this film. So it becomes this, and distance shots become very clear. Close-up shots become very clear. The movement of camera. There's a lovely shot where we see Tatum O'Neal's Addie walking down the hallway of a particular motel or hotel after a very significant event has happened with regard to uh, Trixie and Mose and the other characters in that scene. So just the movement, interiors, it's really lovely. And too, the capturing of this Americana, like things are again like the Dust Bowl era. All the way down to the roads and some shots involving roads and walking. I mean, some shots are like reminiscent of, I don't know, um, Charles Chaplin films, like The Gold Rush or Modern Times or something like that. I mean, it's really quite evocative of a certain era of cinema and also a certain era of the United States history and culture. And I think that therefore that makes the black and white even more powerful, which is a brilliant, brilliant choice. You can't imagine the film any other way. Really, it's that iconic. And then the so that's another brilliant part of this. And then the driving scenes. There's a lot of scenes involving cars, and of course they have to be period cars, and so you have a lot of these scenes, and sometimes it's the two of them. And there are other characters that are involved in the cars occasionally, but oftentimes or primarily it's the two of them, Tatum O'Neal and Ryan O'Neal. And so you see these scenes, and they just light up the screen. Sometimes they get into arguments, and sometimes the takes are quite long, and without a cut, and other times they're just straight on, and you hear you see the frustration on Moses' face as Addie, as he realizes that Addie has gotten the upper hand with the situation, and she knows more than he does, and so it's kind of a little bit frustrated by that, and she's got a little clever smile on her face, which is really wonderful and adorable, and then. Some moments when she's just singing along as they're listening to the radio, keep your sunny side up, one of my favorite moments, and and all the while just trying to, in their own unique and individual ways, just trying to not just create that bond and nurture the bond between the two of them, but also protect that bond and also maybe preserve that bond and keep the bond together, even where that bond has the potential or is under the most threat, or perhaps is under the most risk of being broken throughout the course of the film. And whether that bond will be broken or will it be intact in whatever form it ends up being shaped into as the film progresses to the climax. That's part of the drama of the work. So Paper Moon, Paper Moon. It's only a paper moon. My goodness, only a paper moon. If that's the case, what a paper moon it is. It's great, and also to the loveliness of the title, Paper Moon, and the photograph. And we'll get to lovely detail of the Criterion packaging a little bit later. But this is a great film, one of my favorites ever from Bogdanovich, and it's really delightful. And with all the things that one might know about, I don't know, things that happen later in life, and when you realize and understand, Ryan O'Neal and Tatum O'Neal, and maybe the circumstances of their own lives that they have made public, maybe many years after the fact of making Paper Moon, etc. So we understand all this stuff that might happen in the real world, and two, Paper Moon. It's a movie. It's a film. It's a work of art, but it's also, maybe made in parallel to, or perhaps quite separate from, stuff that happens in real life. But as is the case for any other film. But that being the case, there is this real lovely, almost lightning in a bottle type of effect that I think is uncorked when that feeling is uncorked every time I watch this film. And so there's a sense of a kind of captured in time nostalgia, and also an innocence and charm to it that is very attractive. And as I mentioned as well, I'm now watching this film, and myself being a father, and I have a daughter who is not so far in age from Tatum O'Neal when she made this film. And so I think that I think there is a lot of an emotional punch that this film has, in a way that is quite different than how I felt when I was a kid watching this for the first time. Not that I felt any less enthralled by the film watching it as a kid, but it's a different kind of feeling of enthrallment, I think, for me now, growing older. which I find I'm really attracted to the tenderness of this, the sort of the childlike innocence that's captured, especially in the Tatum O'Neal performance, uh, the the way in which Ryan O'Neal's Mose really, in his own unique, almost brute-like way, he is himself showing a kind of attachment and affection. I can really respond to that yeah, I can respond to that very much. And so, as well as the other performances, as I mentioned, John Hillerman and Madeline Kahn, it's all great and capturing the period perfectly with the great Bogdanovich touch and the Polly Platt touch. It's absolutely fantastic. So, bravo for being able to have this in the Criterion Collection physical media catalog in this way. This is a classic film. Such a beauty, such a delight, such a treat. This is the work which is Paper Moon. The Criterion Collection has released the film Paper Moon, courtesy of this wonderful 4K UHD plus Blu-ray combo edition package, which is what I have in front of me. I happen also to have the 4K disc behind me in the player over my shoulder here. And once again, I'm very sorry. It's a great disc menu. But it has some music over on the soundtrack of it, and also it has a collection of moving images from the film, specifically of the characters portrayed by Ryan O'Neal and Tatum O'Neal in cars. So car scenes are very important, and so that's part of the montage Blu-ray menu or 4K disc menu. So, but for purposes of YouTube copyright gods, I don't want to fan the flames of rage of the gods of YouTube copyright. And so, in any event, what did I? So I'm going to just I'm going to block it out of this YouTube video. I apologize, my deepest apologies if it offends the eye. But I hope you can understand. But in any event, yes, I have the 4K disc in the player. And I also removed, prior to the pressing record for this video, the fold-out poster type insert. It's an interesting fold-out type. I'll talk a little bit about this later in terms of the format of this, but what I wanted to say is that it says about the master on one of the pages or one of the folds here, and I quote, "Paper Moon is presented in director Peter Bogdanovich's preferred aspect ratio of 1.66 to 1. Yes, this new 4K master was created from the 35mm original camera negative. The 35mm print provided by Paramount was used as a reference. The original binaural soundtrack was remastered from the 35mm magnetic track. The feature is presented in Dolby Vision HDR, high dynamic range on the 4K Ultra HD disc, and a high definition SDR, standard dynamic range on the Blu-ray." I've seen this film now on the 4K disc a number of times and also on the Blu-ray disc a number of times, and I must say that the Blu-ray SDR experience, I mean, I can't tell. It really looks very beautiful, quite pristine in the Blu-ray viewing experience, and also on the 4K disc experience with the HDR. So, again, to my old and weary and ever-aging eyes, it's hard for me. It's impossible for me to discern the difference. I mean, so that's my way to say that the Blu-ray watch experience was very, very rewarding, and the 4K watch experience was also very, very rewarding. And I must say too that I love there are moments, as I say, there are moments where things need to be in focus in every part of the frame, and that feels preserved and also quite delineated nicely. But also there's a softness as well. I don't know how to explain. There's a softness which especially is present in a lot of the interior scenes, and I think that's also meant to maybe in kind of a subjective experience. It has this ability then to you can see everything in the frame, which has that added effect of maybe having things from Tatum O'Neal's Addie's point of view. Maybe a lot of things are in a distance. Maybe she's put to the side as Mose and others are trying to deal with a situation, or Mose and Trixie, etc. So, but there are a lot of times when things are happening where she's on the sidelines, but she's still a very observant partner. So I think that makes things that are in the foreground and background, everything in focus and really important. And so that I think is preserved so well in the way it's presented here for purposes of this Criterion release, which is great. And then also there's a kind of softness too, which is preserved. Oftentimes there's a way in which nighttime scenes are important. There's scenes in too involving nighttime and car chases as well, and like lights and smoking, and very evocative of something like a character named Lars Thorwald smoking in the dark in a film Rear Window, which is in fact something that Peter Bogdanovich refers to in the commentary track, which is so beautiful. But my point here is that the way in which light and dark interact with each other with a kind of softness in between, that also it gives a sense of a warmth and inviting nature to it, which I think feels very preserved in the in this presentation. It's really quite something. So I am very, very happy with this. And again, I've had this on a previous non-Criterion release before, but I don't have that with me at the moment. It's in storage in Japan, so I haven't been able to take that and watch that particular release, but lately. But based on my memory of it, it was a very good release. But the Criterion release for me is quite something and quite stunning. So I'm going to have this as my go-to whenever I revisit this film now. So I am all in all quite impressed with how this looks and sounds for this 2024 release. Okay, so now let us turn our attention to the supplements and the commentary track that are accompanying the film, or that are together with this film under this Criterion release. So the first thing we have is the commentary track. Now, once again, the film can be seen or can be viewed either by watching it on the Blu-ray or on the 4K disc. So there are two discs, right? So, when you watch the film itself, the feature film, you can also have the option, turn on the option of the audio commentary track. And so for those purposes, I have the 4K disc still in the machine. Now let me select commentary on the menu here. And it says, this commentary track recorded in 2003 features Paper Moon director Peter Bogdanovich. So I've heard this commentary track before, but again, it's nice to have it included here as part of the Criterion release, and it's another outstanding commentary track. I'm really quite taken with the manner in which Peter Bogdanovich speaks. He does a lot of interviews, and a lot of commentaries, not just on his films, but on other filmmakers that he admires. He talks a lot about Howard Hawks and John Ford and Orson Welles and Alfred Hitchcock and others. And so you see him a lot in all of these features and commentaries and making of documentaries, etc. So it's just the way that he commands your attention. He's got great impressions. He does a great Orson Welles, and he does a great Hitchcock and the like. And there's one. It's one of the. I think it's on one of the Hitchcock Blu-ray making of the Universal films where he's talking about the blood or something like that. I can't do a good Hitchcock, and I can't even do Hitchcock, let alone Peter Bogdanovich doing Hitchcock. So that's kind of a level upon that's like Christopher Nolan's. That's like Inception for impressions. I don't know. I can't really keep up. It's too intense for me. But in any event, Peter Bogdanovich is awesome. It's really awesome. But in any event, so to listen to him speak is really great. And so this commentary track is a great example of this. So please check out the commentary track if you can. I mean, he goes over a number of things here about. Working with Tatum O'Neal. This was her first role. As she says here, she was around 8.5 years old at the time. And it was a stellar performance. And, also she was a young child, and sometimes there might have been working in a film, alongside her father, Ryan O'Neal, who's also very encouraging, and they have a great chemistry between them on screen. And there are scenes that were also very demanding on both actors, but despite the demands, like long takes, large chunks of dialogue that needed to be said, and there are a number of outtakes that are done as well. So. There's a scene involving eating waffles in the morning for breakfast, and Tatum O'Neal comes down and kind of uh, maybe makes a mistake on the line or something, or just laughs on the take. And actually, that outtake is part of one of the trailers that's included here, which is really quite lovely. But it's just a lovely time. But Peter Bogdanovich says that they. They she really took it well and performed so magnificently, as you can tell from the end result. And I think a little bit later he mentions, not maybe it was in this, it was it in this commentary or in one of the featurette documentaries, I think, about the critical acclaim of this film Paper Moon. And I think it was up for a number of Academy Award nominations, but Peter Bogdanovich didn't go because I think he said that he felt that the film was unfairly snubbed in some categories. So I think he decided not to go. But so unfortunately he wasn't there at the ceremony when Tatum O'Neal actually won her Oscar for what was it, Best Supporting Actress at the time. So in any event, he's very proud of the performance. And he shows a lot of the great work that Tatum O'Neal and Ryan O'Neal did here in that. And too, there are some scenes working with Polly Platt. Polly Platt. They have this close working relationship, also close personal relationship. And I think by that time, as Polly Platt also mentions elsewhere, they had by that time separated. In terms of their personal relationship, but they were still working together in very close professional and also close, a close relationship. And part of that was working on Paper Moon. And so there are a lot of things that Polly Platt came up with, and her idea, like and again, I'm trying to be as vague as possible, but how to shoot the last shot of the film, which has it has to do with a stretch of road. And so she had a lot to do. Her and also Frank Marshall had a lot to do with finding that stretch of road in a special location in Kansas in order to find it, because it's the perfect way to end the film in terms of an image. So she helped to find the key locations. And speaking of the look of the film, as Peter Bogdanovich mentions here, the look is so important. And the actual locations were really important. They shot in Kansas and along the way, they're mostly in Kansas and also along the state lines in some places that were still places where they could shoot in the period. It's a 1930s period, so it's really quite excellent. Also some shots too, as there's a lot of car driving, and this is Depression era period. And so Peter Bogdanovich says in some scenes how some shots are meant to evoke things like, or suggest things like John Ford's The Grapes of Wrath, which is great. Again, remember that Peter Bogdanovich has this great admiration for John Ford films, and also great expert. He kind of wrote one of the definitive books on John Ford, in fact. So, Steamboat Round the Bend, there's a reference to that early on in one of the movie house marquees. But let's see, gosh, so many things. Oh yes, also, yes, the working with Laszlo Kovacs and the photography, the focus and keeping things in focus and capturing a kind of period look on the one hand, but also psychologically speaking, maybe suggesting the child point of view. Because always maybe observing from the sidelines, but always observing, always looking, always seeing things in the distance while things in the foreground are happening. So that's a very, very clever, very, very subliminal and very clever use of photography, which is also very much preserved in the way it's presented here for the Criterion release. Also to things like what font they used, how they ended up with the font for the title sequence, not for all the titling, but for particularly the Paper Moon titling, which is great, and or some of the names as well. So you can see that font here in the cover. It's really cool. Also, I mentioned how there's some scenes involving Addie, and she smokes cigarettes, and I think that the cigarettes that they used on set, according to me, they weren't filled with nicotine. but they were like, what are they called? Lettuce cigarettes? I'm not sure, but I think that they're meant to be like stage cigarettes. I'm not sure what the jargon is, or the actual chemical compound makeup of what they use, but that's my understanding um, of that. So, and she really got into the work. And also, Peter Bogdanovich too has experience as an actor. He's also an actor, and so he was able to guide the acting performances by showing the actors like Ryan O'Neal and Tatum what to do. He would actually step in and play the role and play the part and do the blocking while that was happening. So there's also a great scene where Trixie is in the car. Also, P.J. Johnson's character is in the car, and Addie, and then Ryan O'Neal's Mose is driving. And Mose is, at this point, very smitten with Trixie, the Madeline Kahn character, who's great, like larger than life presence, fantastic. And Polly Platt and Peter Bogdanovich talks about her entrance and the importance of having certain wardrobe functionality that showcased and maybe pronounced certain aspects of her approaching figure, let's put it that way. And then so yes, there's a moment where Moses driving in the car, and Ryan O'Neal does this really, it's like, what's the phrase? It's like a seersucker suit type of laugh to it. It's a one of a kind laugh, and it nails the Mose character perfectly. So he says he came up with that laugh. So Ryan O'Neal came up with that laugh too. It was great. And also talking to about John Hillerman and what John Hillerman had to do physically for the roles that he plays. And also, he's talking about. Another thing too, I mentioned that just in the terms of the relationship between Addie and Mose, in the book, according to Bogdanovich, Addie is around 12 years old, but here in the film, he makes Addie 8, to be the age of Tatum O'Neal. So that kind of changes the tenor a bit of the situations that they make. That still has a kind of innocent, playful quality to it. Maybe not quite right. There are things that are like the whole thing with the $20 bill and stuff. But it's still done in a kind of wink to the audience and in a playful way, and so there's still a kind of innocence and playfulness about it, due, I think, to the change in age. And then there's a lot of driving scenes, a lot of point of view shots, or pseudo point of view shots from Tatum O'Neal's point of view. The ending of the film, some sequences that are also reminiscent of I mentioned John Hillerman smoking in the dark, he says it's just like a character in Rear Window from Alfred Hitchcock, etc. So this is a great commentary. I love this. And also the reference to Paper Moon, what that is. Why is the film called Paper Moon? It's only a paper moon. And then that leads into a discussion about the music and choices for period musical pieces and the like. So, and then also trying to set up the plot in this way, in terms of setting things up, and then how that was used in order to find a really satisfying ending to the film. Okay, so anyway, it's great. This is really great commentary track. So please check out the commentary track when you watch the film, if you can. It's really wonderful. So this is the 2003 commentary track from Peter Bogdanovich. Okay, so moving on, let us now talk about the supplements which can be found included with this Criterion release. In addition to the commentary, we have other supplements. And for that, I'd like to take the 4K disc out, which I've just done, and then now put in the Blu-ray disc, which I have also just done. So now I have the Blu-ray disc in the machine, because as per customary with the Criterion releases of their 4K titles, or the titles that employ the 4K UHD format, what they will often do, or what Criterion often does, or I think always does, is have the supplements be part of the Blu-ray, not the 4K, but the Blu-ray. I think it has to do with the storage size, availability on the discs, etc. But in any event, we have that's what I surmise anyway. But so I have the Blu-ray in order for us to explore what the supplements are. And we go to the supplements menu here. And I apologize once again, I've just blocked out this moving image Blu-ray menu on the YouTube video. I apologize. I hope you can forgive me. But I press it, and there are a number of things that appear here. So first up is an introduction by Peter Bogdanovich, and this is an interesting one. It says, the following program was recorded in 1989 for the Laserdisc release of Paper Moon. This is approximately 9 minutes, and this is one where Peter Bogdanovich is essentially standing in various places of, I think it's um, the studio lot, Paramount Studio lot. He's talking about introducing aspects of the film Paper Moon for audiences. Again, as he said here, for the Laserdisc, he talks about things whether you learn from John Ford, happy accidents on that. Improvisations or unexpected things that lead to really magical moments in cinema. Also, the magic of cinema from performances of James Cagney, the films of Orson Welles. Also, this is a widescreen release. I'm sorry, this was a 1989 Laserdisc release, it was a big deal at the time to have films released in widescreen. So that was being marketed. Oh, you're going to watch the film in widescreen here. So that was a big deal. It's very cool. The film is in black and white, as he mentions. Also, the performances of Ryan O'Neal and Tatum O'Neal, and some of the long takes. Sometimes he mentions how long takes also are suggestive and inspire a sense of tension as well, which I think is very apropos. And indeed, there are some scenes here in Paper Moon where the long takes are employed, where there's some tension between the characters. Maybe they're having a fight or argument or something, and the camera's still holding on them. So really great. So this is a very brief and very, very informative and wonderful, playful introduction from Peter Bogdanovich. So this is approximately 9 minutes. So please check this out if you can. Next is Keep Your Sunny Side Up, the Ballad of Addie and Mose. This is great. And it says, the following video essay written and narrated for the Criterion Collection by Peter Bogdanovich biographer Peter Tunget considers Mose and Addie's father-daughter-like relationship, as well as the formal techniques and visual styles informed by it in Paper Moon. I like how it says father-daughter-like relationship. That's very great. This is approximately 25 minutes, and it is a video essay. It's a really great one. And we have aspects about it goes over certain details of the plot. It serves also as a kind of excerpt commentary in a way, which is really another additional commentary track, which is really nice. It's not for the full film necessarily, but it serves that function very nicely. And also the idea of the black and white capturing a sense of period and historical context, but also underlying a sense of melancholy, of yearning, which I think is really great, a great observation. After all, each of the characters can be said to be yearning something or seeking out something that is not theirs yet. And who knows, maybe it will never be theirs, who knows. And maybe for Mose it's one thing, and for Addie it's something else. And maybe that thing could be the same for both characters, who knows, but something that is somehow missing from their lives when we meet both of them. At the same time, that the film starts almost immediately when we meet both of them. And maybe they're yearning something. Thus, the black and white photography, which was beautifully realized, could be part of that. And also to the coinciding of Polly Platt's encouragement of doing this film. It was also mentioned in the earlier commentary track, which is that Bogdanovich had been planning to do a Western film around this time. And remember, this is after Last Picture Show, What's Up Doc, and so this is he wanted to do a Western film with like James Stewart and Henry Fonda and John Wayne, but it just fell through. It didn't work. I think because John Wayne didn't like what the script was turning into, so it didn't happen. And so instead of retreating, Polly Platt suggested to Peter Bogdanovich and encouraged him to do Paper Moon because, as she said to him and as he also acknowledged at the time, he was also a father and experiencing fatherhood. So this is a film that could be said about parenthood and parents and children in that way. And that's great. Incidentally, too, I think the story is that Polly Platt had suggested Tatum O'Neal to play the role of Addie. And when she suggested that, Peter Bogdanovich suggested, why don't we have then Ryan O'Neal, the real-life father of Tatum O'Neal, play the part of Mose? And then also it's mentioned, I think, in I think the commentary and also in the another making of documentary. So let me mention it now, which is Peter Bogdanovich was was convinced that Tatum O'Neal was perfect for the role when he first was invited to, I think, their beach house. And around that time, according to Bogdanovich, he was exercised. He had just started jogging, but he wasn't. He wasn't an athlete by his account. And he went into the house and says, "Oh, why don't you go jogging and stuff?" And then Tatum O'Neal says, "Oh no, don't ask him, don't tell him that, Daddy." And he says, "Why?" And Tatum O'Neal says, and I'm paraphrasing, "Oh, he wouldn't do that, jog out on the beach because he came into the house, he didn't even take off his shoes." And so that kind of detail and that observant, precocious, observant nature of a child is perfect for Addie. And so Tatum O'Neal seemed to embody that that pitch perfect. So. Perfect casting. So and so this goes, as I say, it has a wonderful breakdown of certain sequences of the film in a very observant way. So this is a great video essay, so please check this out if you can. Again, it's approximately 25 minutes, so please check this out if you can. Really wonderful. Next up is The Making of Paper Moon. This is great. This is a three-part document. Yes, 3 parts. So it has the next picture show, and then Asking for the Moon, and Getting the Moon. The first part being around 14 minutes, the second part being about 16 minutes, and the last part being about 4 minutes. So it's about, what, 35, 40 minutes, something like that, 35 minutes. So it's great, and it says here, and I quote, "The following short documentaries produced in 2003 feature director Peter Bogdanovich, production designer Polly Platt, cinematographer Laszlo Kovacs, and associate producer Frank Marshall." So this is really wonderful. In the first part, for instance, this is the film that came after his Bogdanovich's success in What's Up, Doc, and also The Last Picture Show. The Last Picture Show, by the way, is in a great Criterion physical media release together with another later Bogdanovich film, which is called Texasville. So if you're interested in more Bogdanovich films in the Criterion Collection and you haven't seen The Last Picture Show, oh, you've got to see that one. Again, as he mentions here, he was planning to do a large-scale Western, a kind of dream project that fell through. So instead of that, he ended up making the film that's based upon the novel Addie Pray. And then he talks to you about rewriting the script, the Sargent script, and then how Tatum O'Neal was cast, and then how Ryan O'Neal was cast, and then setting the book in the... he says some differences in the book. The book, I haven't read the book, but according to him, he says the book was set in the Deep South, and also Addie was 12 years old. So certain changes were made. Changed the setting to Kansas, also to go along with maybe the necessities of location shooting, and then also to Tatum O'Neal by virtue of her casting and her age, 8.5 years old. This is changing the character and the contours of the story a bit. So. Which is really great. And then to picking the songs from the period, and so that's where I think, according to Bogdanovich, he got the idea of the song, It's Only a Paper Moon, and so it would be a great title for the film. And so it ended up being title change from Addie Pray to Paper Moon, which is a great title. And he says there's a great anecdote about when he decided to change the title. He wasn't quite sure yet, and so Bogdanovich asked Orson Welles what Orson Welles thought of the title, and you get Orson Welles' reaction to the title. It's a great anecdote. You got to check that. It's lovely. And also the participants and the cast and crew. Frank Marshall is here. Frank also. He appears elsewhere in some of the other supplements. Really important contributor. And also the Madeline Kahn, John Hillerman, Randy Quaid, P.J. Johnson. P.J. Johnson's performance here is great. Also, P.J. Johnson was also, this was, I think, her, according to Bogdanovich, this was also her screen debut as well. And what a great performance alongside Madeline Kahn. So this first part, the next picture show, I think goes into like the pre-production aspect of it. From a certain degree. And then we go to the next part, Asking for the Moon, which, as I say, is approximately 16 minutes. And this goes into maybe some aspects of the shooting and the photography style. And here it also comes up in the commentary track about advice from Orson Welles about when shooting in black and white, also apply what is referred to as a red filter, and somehow the application of the red filter in combination with the black and white photography will have the black and white photography even more pronounced in a way. So and there's an interesting visual example of this, or illustration of how this works. Again, for the benefit of people like someone like myself, who's totally out of my depth when it comes to the technical aspects of photography and lenses, and think this was very, very insightful. I had no idea about this. So this is great. And then shooting. Also, he talks to Peter Bogdanovich. He mentions in the commentary, and I forgot to say about. For the most part, he tried to shoot what is known as cutting in camera. So kind of shooting in a way to not shooting so much footage that would then have to be manipulated in the editing room later, but more or less shooting what was needed in terms of the shots for the editing. So it was a very precise way of shooting that made the editing process, I think, quite smooth from his perspective. It's great edited work on that way. And also talking to about long takes, the stretch of road that was used for the final shot of the film, the clothing choices, especially Madeline Kahn's clothing choices, and Polly Platt, etc. So that's great. So that's the second part of this 3-part documentary. And the third part is about 4 minutes, and it's talking about the aftermath, the critical reception, and also the awards acclaim, etc. He says, Peter Bogdanovich says that at the time it was released, it got mixed reviews. But it was very popular. It was a very popular kind of commercial success. And then also, in terms of Academy Awards nominations, as I mentioned, it had some nominations, but according to Peter, it was snubbed in other categories. And so I think, as he mentions it himself, in protest, he decided not to go to the ceremony. But so he wasn't there when Tatum O'Neal won her Oscar for acting. Anyway, it's really great. So this is a great 3-part documentary from 2003. So it's a kind of carryover, but it's great that Criterion is still able to include this. So please check this one out as well. This is really wonderful. But that's not all, because then we have Polly Platt, again, production designer, but also location scout, a close collaborator, working partner with Peter Bogdanovich, almost producer element. So a filmmaker, a wearer of many cinema hats, as it were, and key partner with Peter Bogdanovich here. So Polly Platt is, we see her in a sort of speech, a talk, and it says, this excerpted interview with production designer Polly Platt was originally recorded in 2002 by the Art Directors Guild in Los Angeles after a screening of Paper Moon. This is approximately 18 minutes. This is great. Again, Polly Platt it's so, I mean, the Polly Platt Peter Bogdanovich collaboration is so key. It's so key. I mean, it was discussed, for instance, in the Last Picture Show discussion. It's so key here. So I'm glad she is interviewed and mentioned, and also in many ways, without her input, and I mean, not in many ways, definitely without her input, perhaps Paper Moon would not have come into being. So. So she mentions too how she had been married to Peter Bogdanovich, but by the time of Paper Moon, had already been separated, but they were still working together. And she has this talking about costumes and set decorations and her work, and also her work with trying to find locations together with Frank Marshall and company, and also working with the Alvin Sargent script and making the choice to change it. I think, according to her, the script had the story set in Georgia, I think, but then she decided, or the group decided the production had it changed to Kansas. And she mentions how casting Tatum O'Neal was her idea, casting Ryan O'Neal was Peter Bogdanovich's idea. That's really cool. And then she looks at the film also from the perspective of a producer, also perspective of the set decorator, costume designer, also a close, maybe in terms of the writing, and also a collaborator with the director Peter Bogdanovich. So a very, very key partner here. Also choices of the black and white photography, some aspects of theater that are involved. The final shot of the film is mentioned. So this is great, absolutely great. great. So this is a talk with Polly Platt. Lovely, lovely talk here. This is approximately 18 minutes. Then we have The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson. This is lovely. This is approximately 11 minutes, and it says the following excerpt from an episode of The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson featuring director Peter Bogdanovich and actors Ryan O'Neal and Tatum O'Neal was taped around the time of Paper Moon's U.S. premiere. So we have first Peter Bogdanovich coming out and talking a little bit about the film. He's got a great suit on, by the way. They talk a little bit about why he chose that suit. It's really wonderful. And then a little bit later, Ryan O'Neal comes on and he's got... and talking about Paper Moon and working on the film. And then finally, Tatum O'Neal is coming on stage and sitting next to Johnny Carson. And Johnny Carson is just, he's taken, Tatum O'Neal has this wonderful, it's adorable presence, 8.5 years old, very, it's a wonderful atmosphere. I think you see Ed McMahon in the side there. It's great. And talking about how Peter Bogdanovich was convinced that Tatum O'Neal was perfect for the role of Addie, and the like. So that's great. So this is totaling 11 minutes. This is really wonderful. And also talking to you about, she's 8, so she probably is too young to watch The Tonight Show because it's taped early in the evening, but it gets broadcast like at 12:30 and like in nearly 1 a.m. in the morning. So. She says that's a great exchange. Johnny Carson, that's great. Anyway, The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson. Then we have location scouting. Wow, this is fantastic. This is where is it? Location scouting. This is approximately 16 minutes, and this is, it says here, presented here are excerpts from the original location scouting footage, shot by production designer Polly Platt with associate producer Frank Marshall. And we hear the voiceover explanation about what the location scouting logistics were, where they went. And they went to most places, a lot of places in Kansas, like Hayes, McCracken, Wilson, Gorham, and also in some parts of Nebraska and also Missouri as well. And then too, we see, this is really cool. This is a really cool thing. What they do here is not only do we see the footage, the actual location footage that they shot at the time that they're scouting, early 1970s, but then they freeze frame it. And then what they do is they superimpose like a shot from the film where that actual location is being used. And it's not fully filling up the frame. It's like maybe part of the frame, but they put that bit of the film and superimpose it there, so it looks like it's one of the things that you sometimes see on like Instagram. Someone holds a photo when they're at the actual location of the shot in the film, and it fills part of that frame. That's what's happening here. It's a really, really cool effect. So. Well done. And again, the locations are really key. This also showcases the trust that everyone had in Frank Marshall and Polly Platt's choices, and it worked perfectly. And also the stretches of road, and also the need to have things in a kind of centralized location near to where the production hub would be. So all in fantastic. So this is approximately 16 minutes. So please check it out if you can. And then last but not least, we have the trailer, which is really cool. And as I mentioned before, the trailer is interesting because it includes some outtakes. So like there's a bit where Ryan O'Neal is eating waffles. So that's great. So anyway, charming stuff. So wow. Packed. This is great. This is wonderful. We have some new Criterion produced supplements, and then some carried over from previous releases, including the commentary from Peter Bogdanovich, and also the video essay, which serves as a kind of excerpt commentary. So you're getting, in a sense, 2 separate takes in a commentary or video essay form, as well as the making of documentaries and the like. So. Brilliant stuff. That's just cinema treats abound here in terms of this Criterion releases supplements. And so now, my dear friends, let us wind down our conversation here about this great Criterion release of Paper Moon. Let's talk about the contours of the packaging, the physical media presence of this, and other points. So first, let us turn to the great packaging here. This is a moment from the film with our 2 main characters, Ryan O'Neal And Tatum O'Neal also says starring Ryan O'Neal and Madeline Connor. Tatum O'Neal in the corner here. Peter Bogdanovich on Paper Moon with that iconic classic font. That's really great. And sort of black and white photography, although the lovely yellow pronouncement on the side here for the inner compartment, we'll get to that momentarily. That's great. And then the top and bottom there to carry on this moment here. But then look, it bursts into color in this way. It's sliding out for a moment here. Look at this. We have the inner compartment, which is the period. Look at that. Look at that. It's only a paper moon. This is great. This is like like a box for keepsakes in a manner, which is also a little neat little tie-in to the film. And it says here, look at that. It's like burnt into wood. That's the impression. The Criterion Collection, New York, New York, and all along the side here, Paper Moon, Premium Cigars. That's a cigar box, which is really lovely, absolutely lovely, great touch. And then you open it up, and it goes on to the inside like that. And let me just get to this in a moment. And look at that. I think over this course of these 2024 Criterion discussions, I have come to really not just appreciate seeing the artwork on the discs, but also really loving it when the artwork gets so playful. Look at this. This is great. So we have the 4K disc on the top there, and then the Blu-ray disc on the bottom. So first, let's look at the 4K disc. Look at that with the $20 bill and other things. Oh, this is great. And then for the excuse me here, for the Blu-ray, excuse me. Oh gosh, I'm terrible with my. There you go. For the Blu-ray, look at that. Sort of perfume bottle and a burnt match or cologne bottle, excuse me. And I like too the difference in color, like the Paper Moon is in this red color with this ticket stub, and then Paper Moon for the 4K disc is in this black color. So the Blu-ray and the 4K disc. Oh, this is so great. This is absolutely wonderful. I love little touches like this. I should point out excuse me here, the art. Actually, let me also, in a moment, get to another. Before I get to that, let me get to this, which is the insert. Now, if this had been a staple booklet insert, I think that would have made this release, I think, just across the board, A+++. I'm not a fan of the fold-out type. And what's more, this is kind of like not a poster, but kind of a program type. So it has poster art of sorts like this, and it's like a program here. It says it's only a Paper Moon, so it's like a musical program, or like a maybe a facsimile album, like with it says featured in Paramount Pictures Paper Moon, etc. And so we have this image here, which is a really key kind of suggestion of the film. Although there's a scene which turned out in one way. But so I'm not a big fan of this. I wish it was like, it reminds me a bit of the Bruce Lee box set release from a couple years. It was like a newspaper type. I'd much rather, it's a little bit delicate in the hands. I'd much rather have the booklet type, but that's okay. I mean, for what it's worth, I think I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to suggest this overall interactive experience in terms of the paraphernalia of the physical media packaging. So in that respect, I totally admire what it is they're doing here. But anyway, that's how. But in that being said, the paper is nice. It has this sort of embossed feeling of paper in the back. The Criterion Collection, New York, New York. I love that continuation of this idea of this being like a program or an album of some sort. And then also it's guided along by the great essay, Partners in Crime by Mark Harris, which is on one half here, or with the inside here. It's like a magazine that you're reading. Really lovely. It's a great essay. My strong suggestion is to watch the film first, and then you can read the great essay, Partners in Crime. So let me say here that so as as far as my very minor criticisms about my misgivings towards the fold-out format that's used for the insert, I'm still very impressed. I mean, it would go in there like so, and you close it. But I'm sorry, there's one other thing that they included, which I thought was really cool. It's a little extra feature. Sometimes Criterion will add these little goodies to the whole package. I think a really notable example in the past is something like, oh gosh, Nightmare Alley, or like tarot cards, or like their release of the the Kubrick film Dr. Strangelove. But here we have, look at this. Look at this photo. Again, it's just a little thing. This is great. This is really lovely. I love this, and even the back. It says this is a key kind of prop, a facsimile prop of the film as well. So I love how this is included. This is, more and more I'm thinking that I love it when labels like Criterion and others do it like this, to have these little extra goodies here. Lately I've been getting into a lot of K-pop, Korean pop music, thanks to my daughter. She loves K-pop. She absolutely loves K-pop, and she loves like for example, Stray Kids. She loves Stray Kids, and so if anyone who knows K-pop and I mean, if anyone who's into physical media, I mean, you talk about physical media collecting and K-pop, and that's like its own industry. I mean, it is intense, absolutely intense in terms of that. But one of the things that K-pop, like physical media and albums and releases do so well is they have these like picture cards, and especially the groups and the members of the group, and sometimes they're sort of randomly inserted in the different cover versions of the same album, and so it becomes this huge thing, and so it kind of a real collector's itch is scratched in trying to get all these versions where possible, and then the randomized there's a suspense when you open the package. Which card am I gonna? It's like, what baseball cards will you get in a pack, and that kind of thing. So, not to suggest that I don't. Criterion doesn't have to go in that direction per se, but I mean, there's a certain thrill and excitement for it, especially for physical media perspectives. So, it reminds me a lot of that kind of experience. And so it's at the end of the day, of course, it's about the film, and it's about enjoying the film, which I think this release allows for really nicely, which I've tried to express. But also there are these nice little touches along the way, which don't hurt at all in the slightest. They just have that little extra yet another reason to smile, I guess. So it's lovely. So in any event, sorry about that, but I just wanted to say that this is my way to be overall very enthusiastic for this release, and I'm so happy to see this in the Criterion Collection. Again, one of my favorite Bogdanovich films ever. I'm getting older in years, and so I have kids of my own, and for me personally, I'm looking at this and just think, oh my goodness, it's just it's packing such an emotional wallop. It's quite something, and I can only assume that for me, my own feelings will continue in that direction, down that road, that Kansas road of the heart, so to speak, as I get older as well. And I think this film has an impact and grabs people and really draws people in and welcomes people in their own special ways. It has a large fan base, and it's very popular even now. And I think it affects people in their own unique individual ways, and also in a kind of in a lovely type of feeling of belonging, which is so welcome and so needed. I certainly feel the need to watch films like this. This is a real treat indeed. This is the work which is Paper Moon. All right, my dear friends, so that's it for now. And so until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well. And please keep on watching a lot of great movies, including Paper Moon, including other films by Peter Bogdanovich, including other films in the Criterion Collection, and beyond. So until we meet each other again, stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.